Welcome to Beastars episode 9. I know I didn't do an episode last week and I'm sorry about that. So let's just quickly recap what went over last week. So in episode 7, we had the whole drama club at the Meteor Festival. They were setting up a stage because they were going to do something. They were making like a dinosaur, like giant T-Rex statue. And everyone was helping out, and Haru from the Garden Club was also there, and she was also helping out. And episode 7 ended when Legosi from the top of the T-Rex sees Lewis and Haru interact, which is not something that he's seen before, although he's kind of suspicious of it. And the kind of tender and gentle way that they interact with each other gets him suspicious because, or it kind of ruins his world, really. He collapses, and we got that like super murderous look that ended episode 7. So episode 8 started on that cliffhanger, kind of, and it was really just an examination of what Haru and Legosi have going on, and we have a full-blown love rectangle now, basically. So Legosi likes Haru likes Lewis. Lewis has like a weird kind of passing fancy for Juno. He's like, hey, he doesn't really want to be seen with Haru because of the way that everybody else treats her, because she's kind of promiscuous in the school and kind of infamous for it. And Juno's kind of this up-and-coming rising star, and she like basically strangles Lewis and tells him like, hey, I'm going to be the next Beastar. And then Juno likes Legosi. So full-blown love quadrangle going on here. You can pick what shape you want it to be. That being said, episode 8 was basically just a character study of Legosi and Haru, and they were interacting with each other, and we kind of got to see like the way that the roles that they're supposed to play would have acted out, like Legosi being the kind of dominant, controlling Edward type, and Haru being like the shy, deferring Bella type, which is clearly the opposite of how it is. Haru like puts herself out there all the time, and Legosi is kind of, like Haru says in episode 8, alternating between shy and brash in a way that even he doesn't seem to understand, which we can. It's like he's repressed that kind of like predatory urge that he has, and by doing so he comes off as completely deferring or just out and out domineering. He swings between those two poles kind of wildly. That's kind of his personality. That's how it works. And Lewis is kind of like, hey, if you want to take the power in this relationship, in the scene that he has with Juno, it's kind of like the inversion of the normal like male-female stereotype that you would think of, where she's more like the dominant. She's like a dom, basically. She's his femdom. That's what happened in episode 8. Kind of crazy episode. It ends with Juno seeing Legosi and Haru interacting, and he sees that look in his eyes, and she goes, oh, I understand now. And she's like, but I'm not going to let this happen. So that was episode 8, kind of a Shakespearean encounter in the woods, as it were. So without further ado, 3 minutes. Let's get started with episode 9. One day I'll stop talking about this OP, but it is not this day. Best OP, maybe like all time. Insane. Holy fuck, this is crazy. Okay, so the black market is just an analog for human trafficking, apparently. Not just human trafficking, possibly all kinds of like illegal smuggling operations. It just stands in for that. And this kid was bought by his like adoptive father from this human trafficking site, and he like wants to prove that he has that murderous intent, which I guess is kind of where Lewis gets his like desire for power from, is because he's had all these traumatic experiences as a child. Kind of crazy that they just accept that the black market is a place that exists, because if you think about it, really, it's kind of like, I guess we're kind of, I think it's a commentary on like society being tolerant of illegal places, illegal marketplaces, and places to buy things that are not necessarily in the purview of the law, just being out there and just being part of society. There's no real action taken to shut them down, really, because it's kind of looked upon as kind of like a necessary evil. I guess in a way that the black market is kind of the necessary evil of this society, but we see the kind of human or like personal cost that it comes at to the people involved in it in this situation, because for Lewis it's like it's a very like personal trauma that he was inflicted with when he was a little kid. And so the black market, and by extension carnivores, to him are just like this kind of like, if you've seen Zootopia, the twist at the end of the movie is you think it's like this evil carnivore or like this evil like drug that's getting the carnivores to act up, but really it's like the sheep lady that's doing it because she thinks that carnivores are bad or whatever. I feel like a certain sheep lady vibe coming out from Lewis here. I feel like we also saw the lion mayor at the end of the previous episode when he was talking to Haru. Maybe he's going to be framed for something, and then it's actually going to be like a herbivore acting behind the scenes. Again, haven't read the manga or anything, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I feel like with this kind of setup for a potential future outcome, I feel like that could be definitely a possibility, especially given that Lewis and his dad have these like high up connections, given that he goes to this kind of prestigious school, and his dad clearly has enough connections to just offer a box of cash to someone in a black market and be like, hey, give me this boy, I want him. And he's clearly raising Lewis to have that hatred toward carnivores. So the outcome of that has to be some kind of enmity which he wants to harness for something. And that something is, I think, going to be like the moving plot of this whole series, maybe. His dad maybe has put into action kind of these predation incidents, quote unquote, to kind of instill fear into society so that a greater, more like discriminatory change or policy can be enacted from the top down. If you kind of know your history, you know the pattern that I'm talking about here. And with look at this art style, look at the anger in Lewis's eyes here. Clearly, he supports him, and his dad wants him to continue his work, or maybe we're going to have a discussion between dad and son about this in the future. You know better than me, because I feel like most of you watching this anime have either read the manga or know a lot about the manga. And let's just comment on this art style a little bit. This show is not afraid to go out of its way to do new things. And just having that kind of children's cartoon art style really hammers home the point that this is a kid that this is happening to, and the drawings are made in like these waxy kind of crayonish art style, and it's like it really hits it home that it's a kid that's having to cut his way out of a room full of predators with the knife just to be safe again. Oh, okay, that was a long rant. Okay, continuing. Okay, correction. He didn't cut his way out of the room. He would rather kill himself than kill other people. I guess it's a determination of how strong your sense of morality is. Which again, I don't think bodes well for the future of Lewis and his dad's relationship. Anyway, continuing. Oh, I also forgot. Last episode, Haru told Legoshi about the incident where she hurt her hand, and she was like, I was actually attacked by a predator, right before Legoshi was going to tell her what he ended up doing to her that night, just because he couldn't control himself or whatever. So he got foiled in that plan. Although I feel like Haru isn't letting on as much as she really knows, because I feel like she has enough like sense of smell to, if he had like completely wrapped her up like that, she would be able to recognize him, if not by sight, then by smell, or by feel, even like the feel of his fur or whatever. So that might be a reveal that we get later on, although I'm not sure. But it feels like Haru is not as clueless as she seems here. I can't help but feel there's a little bit of like a lot of this show, kind of like how the X-Men were like analogs for just minorities or marginalized groups back in the 80s or whatever, when they were first coming into popularity. I feel like this show, it has a lot of stand-ins for other like classes or groups of people. Like sometimes when there's a scene between Haru and Legoshi, I feel like Legoshi's like the male kind of stand-in and Haru's like the female stand-in, and the way that their roles are reversed is what makes that interaction interesting. But at the same time, in episode 8, we had Juno kind of overtaking that kind of power dynamic between her and Lewis, where it would traditionally be the other way around, but because she's a predator and he's prey, the interaction is different. And in this case, they're predator and Lewis is prey, but the way that they're talking about it, like they're talking about the political implications of him having more power, and the way that the carnivores are conspiring to sabotage him, kind of reminds me of how like the white community treated black civil rights activists back in the 60s. So I feel like this like animal predator prey analog can have a lot of different uses, in the sense that it can be used to represent a lot of different things, and the authors, the author of the book, as well as the anime studio, like really make use of that to just explore all these different themes. And I'm a theme guy, so at the end of the day, I find all this very interesting. The sabotage or lynching by a group of, these subtitles are fan translated, so that may not be literal, but the subtitles that came up were lynching. So the lynching of a young up and coming kind of community figure by a kind of more established, more powerful group of people, that bears like pretty clear analogs to what was happening back in the 60s with Martin Luther King and many other civil rights figures. Ooh, this show is like weirdly good at all these things. Maybe I'm just reading too far into it. I could be reading way too far into it. I tend to do that. Okay, let's keep going. Also forgot another. I really should have covered episode 8. It would have made things much simpler. But at the end of episode 8, when there's like a complete blackout, and Legoshi goes looking for Haru because of the predation incidents always happening at night. And when he does find her, she like hugs him, but she thinks he's Lewis, and he gets his heart broken. At the same time that Juno gets her heart broken. This show is just great at this kind of stuff. Yeah, this is the best. She like knows what's gonna happen. Like you've seen this. This exact dynamic has played out in whatever school or high school or college or whatever you went to. You've seen this actually happen. You've seen this girl who knows this is happening, and then this guy is just like, I have to do it anyway. And then he goes, and then he gets like completely deflected because she doesn't want to make it awkward, but he presses on nonetheless, just to make things awkward without getting the hint at all. Good on you, Legoshi, for not taking any hints. Okay, that was an unexpected development. Okay then, let's see what happens. Oh, this, okay. I keep saying this. I feel like this manga was inspired by Zootopia. Not necessarily in any like derogatory manner, but there are definitely Twilight parallels as well. Like a lot. I'm assuming some of you at least have read Twilight. You know this exact thing happens in Twilight. Like she gets kidnapped, and then Edward goes and saves her with his family. But this time I guess it's gonna be Lewis and Legoshi who go save her. Let's see what happens. I have a feeling she's not going to be fine. And I have a feeling that he's just going to wrap it up because she's going to get sold into the black market where predators like him go in to buy meat. I'm assuming that's what's going to happen. He's going to have a heel turn in about 5 seconds. Let's see. So not quite what I said. He's just like kind of tacitly accepting their existence instead of like actively hunting them down, which is the same as just allowing them to exist anyway. Drawing back to that like lynching parallel I made before. At the time, the police didn't really do anything to stop lynchings. That's why they kept happening. They just kind of tacitly accepted that they exist instead of actively preventing them from happening or persecuting the people who committed them. That's kind of what's happening here. But I don't think this is the parallel here. This would be like someone kidnapping a girl and no one looking for her, and then she gets sold into human trafficking or something. That's the equivalent here. Like I said, these animal, like the anthropomorphization of these animals lends itself to a lot of thematic parallels here, or in general in the show. Why? I mean, it's so like, it's so resonant with our condition in our society, because that's really what happens most of the time, is the people in power make a mistake, then other people in power cover up for them, or they just are in cahoots with a different group that's doing something to profit themselves, and the people in power are like told to just discreetly not allow anything to come to the public's eye or anything. I don't want to say the name, but there is a certain person who was supposed to have killed themselves this year that perhaps didn't. And that's all because people in power don't want their inner workings coming out to light. This mayor is clearly complicit in these kidnappings and, I assume, eatings afterward. Consumptions, how would you say that? But he's clearly part of the problem. And now he's trying to rope Lewis into being it, because Lewis is going to become part of the power structure. And before you can even be part of the power structure, you have to be told and groomed and brainwashed into accepting that this is just the way that things are, and you can't really change things, and you have to accept that, or you won't be brought into the power structure. And as you can see from Lewis's facial expression, he doesn't like that idea. He doesn't really want to have anything to do with that, because he, first of all, likes Haru. Second of all, he doesn't like carnivores. Third of all, he wants to protect everyone. That's kind of like his operating principle whenever he goes anywhere, is that he wants to protect everybody and make sure that everyone has their best outcome. That's why he performed at that stage, on the stage with his broken ankle in that Adler production, because he values, the way things are like presented and like the truth and honesty and everything. Lewis, this is going to be a heck of a time for you. Let's have that Lewis Lugosi team up. I want to see it real bad. Shout out to the music in the scene. Amazing music in the scene. Also, Lewis is still like kind of in that brainwashed kind of aristocratic idea of your past, if it's not something that talks about prestige and kind of like the stock of your family or whatever, the gold label that you could place upon your heritage, then it's a point of shame. Whereas we, in like this American manifest destiny kind of way, we kind of think of it as the higher up you rose, the more that you're worthy of praise. So over here, if you said that you came from a human livestock kind of situation, and now you're like going to Harvard, basically, this is like the animal world equivalent of Harvard, I would think. That will be something to be praised. But for the aristocrats, it's still like, oh, but they're still from common stock. They're not worthy of our company, attention, cooperation, etc., etc. And Lewis is in that mindset. I want to see him progress to the more like, I rose from so little mindset. That will be, I think, empowering for him and kind of more relatable for us, because we can't really relate to what is your last name, what does it say about you kind of discrimination like that, whereas Lewis is kind of in that world and he has to live by those rules. I wanted the team up. This is somehow even better. Let the fight finish and then I'll talk about it. Okay, that was episode 9 of Beastars. What an interesting episode. Every episode is so good. It's so amazingly good. So we talked a lot about kind of the dynamics between Haru and Lewis and Haru and Lugosi. This episode we talked a little bit about the analogs for the black market, how the kidnappings work, human trafficking analogs, like just I guess like illegal smuggling analogs. And at the end there, we kind of got the thing that I've been talking about with Lewis since episode like 1 or 2, which is that he wants power, but he wants that natural power that he feels that predators have. And he expressed as much this episode. He basically said, Lugosi, you're hiding this true strength that I wish that I had. And we saw where that came from, because when he talked to the mayor, who's a lion, who has to like make his face more pleasing to the public to be elected, otherwise he wouldn't be considered friendly or approachable. When he sees that, he sees kind of this like repression, like this tamping down of an already existent natural power. And he feels like his position in society is because people have propped him up, like his dad pulled him out of the black market. If he had been left in that room alone with those predators, he would have died one way or another. And he feels like if he was a predator, he would be able to take, life into his own hands and not have to be at the whims of people above him. But of course, we know that's not the case. You can't really change anything about yourself to make you not at the whims of others. You're going to be at the whims of others regardless. You just kind of have to accept that. And, like getting more power doesn't really solve the problem, because then people from on high will come and destroy you, as we've seen in the past when people have tried to take power and it hasn't ended so well for them. I feel like Lewis is kind of like a very relatable character to a lot of us, because he feels powerless, so he wants power because he thinks that will solve it. But at the same time, we see someone who has power who is powerless at the same time because he can't use it in the society in the way that rules are. It's just all so great. The show, themes, so many themes. We touched on them a bunch. The animal thing is just basically a masterstroke, because it stands in for so many different groups and conflicts and different like perspectives of looking at things, and we've kind of discussed a lot of them. I feel like I'm just like 70 feet deep into the show at this point. Probably the show of the year. Definitely the show of the year. Maybe like one, two. Like this is 1 and Sarazanmai is 2. But thematically, I feel like this tackles society in a more meaningful way, where Sarazanmai I feel was kind of surface in the sense that it only dealt with one theme, which is kind of like accepting yourself and kind of moving forward from past trauma. This is like all encompassing in the sense that it just shows like so many different aspects of human nature, and everyone's an animal, which somehow makes it even cooler. I can only praise the show so much. So I'll be back next week with episode 10 of Beastars, where I'll rave about it some more. There's really nothing wrong with the show at all on any level. It's just perfectly done. That's it for this week. Thank you for watching. That was episode 9 of Beastars. I'll see you in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next video.